My son was born while my entire family was across town filming my nephew blowing out 6 candles, and the first voice I heard after the doctor lifted my baby into the world was not my mother crying with joy, not my husband praying beside me, not my sister asking if I was okay. It was a voicemail. A cheerful, laughing voicemail accidentally left on my phone, with party music in the background, and my mother saying my C-section could wait, because the birthday video was more important. I know how that sounds. I know it sounds impossible that a family could choose balloons, cake, and a child's birthday song over a young woman being cut open in an operating room to bring her first baby into the world. I would not have believed it either if it had not happened to me. For months, I told myself there had to be a reason. Maybe they misunderstood the time. Maybe traffic was bad. Maybe someone lost their phone. But the truth was waiting for me in that voicemail. And later, in a courtroom so quiet that even the judge stopped writing when my doctor pressed play. My name is Lily, and before all of this, I truly believed I had a family. Not a perfect one, but a family. I was 23, newly married, pregnant with my first child, and still soft enough to think love meant people showed up when it mattered. I lived in a small blue house at the end of a quiet street with my husband, Daniel. We had saved for that house with coins, overtime shifts, and secondhand furniture. The nursery had pale green walls because we wanted the baby's room to feel calm. Daniel built the crib himself, even though it took him 3 weekends and 1 instruction manual he pretended not to need. Back then, my life felt simple in the way simple things feel precious. Daniel worked as an electrician, and I worked part-time at a clinic desk until my pregnancy became too difficult. Every evening, he came home smelling like metal, dust, and cold air, and he would place one hand on my stomach before even taking off his boots. We used to sit on the couch with cheap takeout and make little plans. We talked about names, daycare, bills, sleepless nights, and how we would become the kind of parents who never made our child feel like a burden. That promise mattered to me more than I admitted, because all my life, I had known what it felt like to be treated like the extra person in the room. My older sister, Vanessa, had always been the golden one. She was not cruel in a loud way, not at first. She was the kind of person who smiled sweetly in front of relatives and then made sure everyone's attention bent toward her. When she had her son, Noah, my parents seemed to become grandparents before they had ever really been parents to me. Noah was loved loudly. Every lost tooth became a family event. Every school drawing was framed. Every birthday was planned like a royal celebration. I loved my nephew. He was an innocent child in all of it. But I would be lying if I said it did not hurt to watch my mother become the warm, patient, glowing woman I had begged for when I was little. When I found out I was pregnant, I thought maybe things would change. I thought maybe my baby would give my family a reason to come closer to me. My mother cried when I told her. But even then, she glanced at Vanessa and said how sweet it would be for Noah to finally have a cousin. My father asked whether Daniel and I could afford a baby. Vanessa touched my stomach before I was even showing and joked that I should not expect everyone to stop their lives just because I was pregnant. I laughed because that was what I had been trained to do. I laughed when something hurt, so no one could accuse me of being sensitive. Still, I hoped. Hope can make a fool out of anyone, especially someone who has been hungry for love for too long. I invited my mother to appointments. I sent her ultrasound pictures. I told her about the baby's heartbeat, about the tiny kicks, about the way I cried the first time Daniel felt movement under his palm. Sometimes she answered with a heart emoji. Sometimes she said she was busy helping Vanessa with Noah's school projects. Sometimes she promised she would be there when the baby came, and I held on to those promises like they were proof that I still mattered. My due date was in early June, just 2 days after Noah's 6th birthday. The timing became a problem before it even became real. Vanessa had already planned a big backyard party with a superhero theme, a rented bounce house, matching shirts, and a professional videographer because she wanted memories that looked beautiful online. My mother talked about that party for weeks. She ordered decorations. My father built a little stage for the cake table. Every family group chat became a countdown to Noah's big day. Meanwhile, when I mentioned that my doctor was concerned about my blood pressure and the baby's position, The chat went quiet for almost 2 hours. At 37 weeks, my doctor told me there was a strong chance I would need a scheduled C-section. The baby was breech, my pressure was rising, and he did not want to wait until things became dangerous. His name was Dr. Patel, a calm man with kind eyes and a voice that never rushed. He explained everything gently, but I could hear the seriousness underneath. He told me the surgery would be safer than trying to force my body into something it was not ready to do. Daniel squeezed my hand and said we would do whatever kept me and the baby safe. I nodded, but inside I was already thinking about my mother. When I called her from the parking lot, I expected fear. I expected concern. I expected the kind of motherly panic I had seen her give Vanessa over fevers, headaches, and school forms. Instead, she sighed. She asked what day the surgery would be. When I told her it might have to be Saturday morning, there was silence on the line. Then she reminded me that Saturday was Noah's party. I waited for her to say they would figure it out. I waited for her to say my surgery came first. But she only said it was unfortunate timing, as if I had chosen it to inconvenience everyone. I tried to stay calm. I told her it was not a salon appointment or a lunch reservation. It was surgery. It was her grandchild being born. She said she understood, but her voice was tight. She said Vanessa had already paid deposits. She said Noah had been looking forward to the party for months. She said a C-section took a long time and that I would mostly be with doctors anyway. I remember staring through the windshield at the hospital entrance while Daniel watched my face change. I told my mother I was scared. She softened for half a second and said she would try her best. That was all. She would try her best. The night before the surgery, I barely slept. My hospital bag sat by the door with tiny clothes folded inside, clothes so small they looked unreal. Daniel checked the car seat 3 times. He walked from room to room like a man preparing for both a miracle and a storm. I kept looking at my phone, waiting for a message from my mother saying she would be there early. Around 9, she sent a picture of Noah's birthday cake instead. It was huge, blue and red, with little plastic heroes climbing the sides. Under the picture, she wrote that the cake turned out amazing and that tomorrow would be such a special day. I stared at that message until the words blurred. Daniel took the phone gently from my hand and set it face down on the nightstand. He did not insult my family. He rarely did. He knew I was still trying to believe in them, and he loved me enough not to rip away the last pieces of that belief before I was ready. He only said that no matter who came or did not come, he would be beside me. I wanted that to be enough. In many ways it was. But there is a particular kind of ache that comes from needing your mother when you are about to become one. We arrived at the hospital before sunrise. The sky was gray, and the parking lot lights still glowed against the damp pavement. I remember the smell of disinfectant, the squeak of Daniel's shoes in the hallway, the plastic bracelet being wrapped around my wrist. A nurse named Claire helped me into a gown and asked who would be in the waiting room. I gave her my parents' names, Vanessa's name, and even my father-in-law's name, though he lived 2 hours away and had already promised to come as soon as he could. Claire smiled and said the baby would have quite a welcome committee. I smiled back because I did not know what else to do. Daniel stood beside the bed, rubbing small circles into my hand. My phone stayed on the rolling table near my hip. Every few minutes I checked it. There were no missed calls, no messages from my mother, no update from my father, no apology from Vanessa. At 7:15, I sent a message to the family chat saying we were checked in and the surgery would begin soon. Daniel added a picture of us trying to smile, me pale and swollen in the hospital bed, him wearing a nervous grin that did not reach his eyes. My aunt replied with prayers. A cousin sent hearts. My mother did not answer. Vanessa did not answer. My father did not answer. I told myself they were driving. I told myself they were getting coffee. I told myself 100 small lies because the truth felt too sharp to touch. Then, at 7:42, Vanessa posted a video in the family chat. It was not from the hospital. It was her backyard, already full of balloons, with Noah running past the camera in a cape while my mother laughed behind him. For a moment, my mind refused to understand what I was seeing. I watched the clip twice. In the background, my father was adjusting a tripod. My mother was holding a tray of cupcakes. Vanessa was telling everyone to hurry because the videographer would arrive soon. The party had not even started, but they were there. They were all there. Across town, fully dressed, smiling, preparing to capture every second of Noah's birthday while I lay in a hospital bed waiting for surgery. Daniel saw the video before I could hide my face. Something hardened in him. He took the phone, watched in silence, then placed it back down with care that felt more frightening than anger. He asked if I wanted him to call them. I shook my head, then nodded, then shook my head again. I did not know what I wanted. I wanted my mother to burst through the door and explain. I wanted my father to say he had made a terrible mistake. I wanted Vanessa to remember I was her little sister, not an inconvenience. Mostly, I wanted not to care. The nurse came in to start the final preparations. She noticed my tears right away. Nurses always notice what families pretend not to see. She asked if I was in pain. I said no. Then I said yes, but not from the surgery. Daniel told her quietly that my family had gone to a birthday party instead of coming to the hospital. Claire's face changed, but she did not pity me in a way that made me feel small. She simply placed a warm blanket over my legs and said that the people in that room were going to take very good care of me. At 8:10, my mother finally called. My heart jumped so hard that the monitor beside me quickened. I answered immediately. But the line was chaos. Music, children shouting, someone laughing. My mother's voice was distant, not speaking to me at first. She must have called by accident, or maybe she thought she had hung up after trying me. I said her name. I said, Mom. No one answered. Then I heard Vanessa say that they needed to record Noah walking out to see the decorations. My mother laughed and said they could not miss it, not after all that planning. I kept saying Mom into the phone like a child lost in a store. Then my father's voice came through, irritated and low. He asked whether anyone had heard from me. My mother said I was probably already in surgery. Vanessa said that C-sections happened every day and that I would be fine. Then came the sentence that stayed inside my body like a blade. My mother said they could visit later, but Noah only turned 6 once, and the video mattered because memories could not be repeated. I stopped breathing normally. Daniel grabbed the phone from my hand and shouted into it, but nobody heard him over the party noise. The call ended a few seconds later. At first, I thought it was just a call. Then my phone buzzed again. A voicemail notification appeared. Somehow, while I was calling out to my own mother from a hospital bed, her phone had recorded everything she had said and sent it to me like a confession wrapped in static and birthday music. Daniel wanted to call them back. I told him not to. My voice sounded strange, almost calm, as if something inside me had stepped away from the scene to survive it. I looked at the phone. I looked at my stomach. I looked at the empty doorway where I had imagined my family standing. And then I understood something I had spent my whole life avoiding. They were not late. They were not confused. They had chosen. Dr. Patel came in shortly after. He checked my chart and explained the next steps again, but his eyes kept moving to my face. He asked if I felt ready. I almost laughed. Ready was not the word. I was terrified. I was humiliated. I was grieving people who were still alive, but my baby was still inside me, still depending on my body, still waiting to be brought safely into the world. So I swallowed everything else and nodded. Daniel leaned down and kissed my forehead. His hand was shaking. The operating room was colder than I expected. Bright lights hovered above me. Blue sheets rose in front of my chest, separating my face from the part of me the doctors would open. Daniel sat near my head in scrubs and a cap, whispering that he was there, that I was strong, that our baby was almost here. I tried to focus on his voice. I tried not to think about the backyard across town, the camera, the cake, my mother's smile as she chose a birthday video over my fear. When the surgery began, I felt pressure but not pain. That was what everyone had said would happen. But no one had told me how strange it would be to feel your body moved like it belonged partly to someone else. I stared at Daniel's eyes. He kept talking, telling me about the nursery, about the tiny socks waiting at home, about how our son would someday hear the story of how brave his mother was. I wanted to believe I was brave. In that moment, I felt broken open in more ways than one. Then I heard him. A cry, sharp and alive, cutting through every cold thought in the room. My son? My baby? Dr. Patel lifted him just enough for me to see a small red face, a trembling mouth, tiny fists curled like he was ready to fight the whole world. Daniel sobbed. I had never heard him make that sound before. The nurse brought the baby close to my cheek, and when his skin touched mine, everything else blurred. For a few seconds, there was no party, no betrayal, no empty waiting room. There was only my son breathing against me. We named him Oliver. Daniel had chosen the name months earlier because it sounded gentle but strong. When they placed him in Daniel's arms while the doctors finished caring for me, I watched my husband become a father. His face changed completely, softened by awe, fear, and a love so immediate it almost hurt to witness. I thought of my parents then, and I hated that I thought of them. I wondered if my mother felt anything. I wondered if my father checked his phone. I wondered if Vanessa knew that while she was filming a birthday entrance, her nephew had taken his first breath. After surgery, they moved me to recovery. I was shaking from the medication and exhaustion. Daniel sat beside me with Oliver wrapped against his chest. The nurse helped me try to feed him, and I cried because I was overwhelmed, because he was beautiful, because pain medication made everything float, and because my phone had started buzzing again. This time, the family chat was full of birthday pictures. Noah with cake on his face, my parents standing behind him, Vanessa posing in front of the decorations. Someone had written that it was a perfect day. A perfect day. I read those words while my incision burned and my newborn rooted weakly against my gown. I did not answer. Daniel took my phone away again, but not before I saw that my mother had finally sent me a private message. It said she hoped everything went well and that they would come by after the party if it was not too late. Not if I was okay. Not asking if the baby was healthy. Not saying she was sorry. Just if it was not too late. That was the first time I felt something inside me shift from sadness into something colder. Not hatred. Not yet. More like clarity. A clean, terrible clarity. I looked at Oliver's tiny face and knew I could not raise him inside the same pattern that had swallowed me. I could not teach him that love meant begging. I could not let him grow up watching his mother accept crumbs and call them family. I did not know what I would do with that knowledge yet, but it was there, quiet and solid beneath the pain. They came that evening, just as visiting hours were close to ending. My mother walked in first, carrying a gift bag with blue tissue paper. My father followed with a tired expression, as if the hospital visit was an obligation after a long day. Vanessa came last, holding Noah's hand. He was still wearing part of his costume. I looked at my nephew and felt no anger toward him. He smiled shyly and asked if the baby was sleeping. He was innocent. That made everything worse. My mother moved toward the bassinet with a bright, practiced smile. She said Oliver was precious. She said he looked like me around the mouth. She reached for him without asking, and Daniel stepped in front of the bassinet. The room froze. My mother blinked, offended. Daniel said gently but firmly that I was exhausted and that no one would hold the baby unless I said so. My father muttered that there was no need to be dramatic. Vanessa rolled her eyes. And there it was again, the old word they used whenever I had feelings they did not want to face. I asked them why they did not come. My voice was weak, but the room went silent. My mother looked down at the gift bag. She said the timing had been difficult. My father said they had already committed to the party. Vanessa said Noah would have been devastated if everyone disappeared. I stared at her. Everyone. That was what she said. As if my entire family belonged to her by default. As if I had tried to steal guests from a child instead of asking my parents to show up for surgery. Daniel asked if they had anything to say about the voicemail. My mother's face changed. My father looked at her. Vanessa stopped pretending to be bored. I had not told them about it. Daniel had not either. For the first time all day, they looked afraid. Not sorry. Afraid. My mother asked what voicemail. I picked up my phone with trembling fingers and opened it. I did not play it. Not then. Something in me knew that if I played it in that hospital room, they would deny it, twist it, explain it away, or accuse me of ruining a happy day. So I only said that I heard them. I heard everything. My mother's mouth opened, then closed. My father said I must have misunderstood. Vanessa said background noise could make anything sound bad. Daniel let out a bitter laugh, but I touched his arm to stop him. I was too tired for war. My body had been cut open that morning. My heart had been cut open long before that. I told them to leave. My mother gasped as if I had slapped her. My father said I was being emotional because of hormones. Vanessa said I would regret pushing away the only family I had. But Daniel was already holding the door. Claire, the nurse, appeared in the hallway as if she had been close enough to hear the tension. My mother looked at the baby one more time, then at me, and something like anger hardened behind her eyes. She said they would come back when I was ready to be reasonable. After they left, the room felt larger and emptier, but not worse. That surprised me. I expected to collapse. Instead, I felt tired in a way that had no bottom. Daniel locked the door softly and came back to sit beside me. Oliver made a small sound in his sleep, and both of us looked at him like he had spoken. Daniel said we needed to save the voicemail. He said we needed to send it somewhere safe. I asked why. He looked at the door my family had just walked through and said, because people who can abandon you on the operating table can do worse when they are embarrassed. I wanted to tell him he was wrong. I wanted to say my family was selfish but not dangerous. I wanted to believe there was still a line they would not cross. But the voicemail sat on my phone like proof of a person I had never wanted to become. A person who had evidence against her own mother. A person whose happiest day had already turned into something that might need witnesses. I forwarded the recording to Daniel. Then, with shaking hands, I sent it to my email too. That night, while Oliver slept in the bassinet and Daniel dozed in the chair, I stayed awake listening to the soft machines around me. I thought about the party video. I thought about my mother saying memories could not be repeated. She was right about that. Some memories happen once and become the line dividing who you were from who you will become. My son's birth was one of them. So was that voicemail. And while the hospital lights dimmed and my family posted smiling pictures online, I began to understand that the real story had not ended in the operating room. It had only started there. The first week after Oliver was born felt like living inside two completely different worlds. In one world, there was wonder. There were tiny fingers wrapped around mine, sleepy noises in the middle of the night, and moments when I would stare at my son for 10 minutes without realizing any time had passed. In the other world, there was a growing knot inside my chest every time my phone lit up with a message from my family. One world was teaching me what love looked like. The other was reminding me what it looked like when love came with conditions. When we brought Oliver home, Daniel's parents arrived before we even pulled into the driveway. His father carried bags. His mother carried food. Neither of them asked if it was a good time. They simply showed up because that was what family did when a baby came home. I watched them move around our little house, cleaning dishes, folding laundry, and taking care of things nobody had asked them to do. More than once, I had to leave the room because I felt embarrassed by how emotional it made me. Their kindness highlighted something I had spent years pretending not to see. My mother called twice that first day. I did not answer. Then she sent a message saying she was hurt by how I had treated her at the hospital. I read the words 3 times because I genuinely thought I must have misunderstood them. Hurt. She was hurt. Not me. Not the woman who had undergone surgery while her family attended a birthday party. Not the new mother who had spent months hoping someone would show up. Somehow, in my mother's version of events, she had become the victim. Daniel wanted to block her immediately. I told him not yet. Part of me still hoped for an apology. Not because I believed it would erase anything, but because I wanted proof that they understood what they had done. I wanted one honest conversation. One moment where somebody said we were wrong and we are sorry. Instead, every message felt carefully designed to make me question my own memory. My father said they had visited the hospital, which proved they cared. Vanessa said I was focusing on one bad decision instead of all the support they had given me over the years. The support she referred to was never explained. A week later, my mother posted a photo online that changed something in me. The picture showed her holding Oliver at the hospital during that brief visit. She had cropped out everyone else and written a caption about becoming a grandmother again. Underneath, dozens of comments praised her. People called her loving. They called her devoted. They called her blessed. She thanked every person individually. Not once did she mention that she had missed his birth. Not once did she mention the operating room. Not once did she mention the birthday party. I sat in my living room feeding Oliver while reading those comments. My hands shook so badly that I almost dropped my phone. Daniel looked over my shoulder and immediately understood why I was upset. He asked if I wanted him to report the post. I said no. Reporting it would not change anything. The problem was not the photo. The problem was that my mother genuinely believed her version of the story. Somewhere between the hospital and that social media post, she had rewritten reality. The following Sunday, my aunt called. She was one of the few relatives who had actually checked on me before surgery. Her voice sounded hesitant. She asked if everything was okay between me and my parents. When I told her the truth, she became very quiet. Then she told me something I had not known. According to my mother, I had overreacted because the surgery had been routine. According to Vanessa, I had intentionally scheduled it during Noah's birthday weekend to create drama. According to my father, I had embarrassed the family by causing a scene at the hospital. For a moment, I could not speak. I felt like I had stepped into another universe. My surgery had not been scheduled by me. It had been scheduled by my doctor because of medical concerns. There had been no scene at the hospital. In fact, I had barely spoken. Yet somehow those stories were spreading through the family. My aunt said she did not believe them, but others did. Some relatives had started treating me differently. Some thought I was holding a grudge over something small. After hanging up, I sat on the couch with Oliver asleep on my chest. Daniel found me staring at the wall. When I explained what my aunt had said, his expression became darker than I had ever seen it. Daniel was not a man who yelled often. He was patient, calm, thoughtful. But I could see something changing inside him. He said that people who lie to protect themselves rarely stop at one lie. He said they keep building until the truth disappears underneath. At first, I thought he was exaggerating. Then the hospital bill arrived. The envelope looked ordinary. I opened it while drinking coffee one morning. Most of the expenses were exactly what we expected. Insurance covered part of the procedure. We owed a manageable amount. Then I noticed something strange. There was a section listing emergency contact information. My mother's name appeared there. So did my father's. That made sense. What did not make sense was a note attached to the file. The note stated that family members had been contacted repeatedly during my admission, but were unavailable. I stared at those words. Unavailable. Not delayed. Not traveling. Not attending another event. Unavailable. The hospital had called them. More than once. And they had chosen not to come. The realization hit me harder than the voicemail. Before, there had still been room for excuses. Maybe they thought they had time. Maybe they planned to arrive later. But the hospital itself had reached out. Medical staff had called them. They knew exactly what was happening. When Daniel came home that evening, I showed him the paperwork. He read it silently before asking if we could request the hospital records. I was confused at first. Why would we need them? What difference would it make? The damage was already done. Daniel reminded me about the stories spreading through the family. He reminded me about the social media posts. He reminded me about the way every conversation somehow became my fault. Then he asked a question that stayed with me. What happens if they decide to tell Oliver a different version someday? That question settled deep inside me. Because suddenly this was not only about me anymore. One afternoon, about 3 weeks after the birth, my father appeared at our house unannounced. He knocked 3 times and then let himself into the backyard as if he still owned part of my life. Daniel saw him through the kitchen window. I opened the door before things could become hostile. My father looked uncomfortable, not guilty. Just uncomfortable. He said we needed to move forward. I asked whether moving forward included apologizing. He sighed heavily. Then he said something I will never forget. He said I needed to understand that Noah was a child and children should come first. For a second, I thought I had misheard him. I looked down at Oliver sleeping in my arms. Then I looked back at my father. I asked what Oliver was. My father frowned. I asked whether my newborn son was not also a child. His mouth opened and closed. For the first time in the conversation, he had no answer. Instead, he changed the subject. He said the family was becoming divided. He said people were taking sides. He said my mother cried every night because I would not forgive her. Not once did he say she cried because she abandoned me. Only because there were consequences. When he left, I locked the door and burst into tears. Not because of what he said, because of what he failed to say. No apology. No accountability. No acknowledgement. Nothing. The next month brought even more surprises. A cousin forwarded screenshots from a private family group chat. I was never supposed to see them. The messages showed Vanessa mocking me repeatedly. She called me dramatic. She called my surgery a scheduled inconvenience. She joked that babies could not remember their birthdays anyway. Several relatives disagreed with her, but my mother never defended me. She simply reacted with laughing emojis and changed the subject. Reading those messages felt like reopening a wound. Not because Vanessa disliked me. I had known that for years. What hurt was seeing my mother watch it happen. Again. Just like she always had. A few days later, I received a call from the hospital. At first, I assumed it concerned billing. Instead, the woman on the phone asked whether I had requested copies of my admission records. I said no. She sounded confused. Someone had submitted a request using family authorization. My stomach tightened immediately. I asked who. There was a pause. Then she gave me my mother's name. For several seconds, I could not breathe. Why would my mother want my medical records? Why would she need information from my surgery? The hospital denied the request because proper authorization was missing, but the attempt itself left me shaken. When Daniel heard about it, his face went pale. Neither of us could think of an innocent explanation. The following evening, my aunt called again. This time, her voice sounded frightened. She told me that my mother and Vanessa had been discussing legal options. The words barely made sense. Legal options for what? Then my aunt explained. Apparently, they believed the voicemail was a threat. They were worried I might use it against them publicly. So they had started talking about protecting themselves, as though they were the injured party, as though I had done something wrong. That was the moment everything changed. Until then, I had wanted peace. I had wanted distance. I had wanted healing. But now I realized something dangerous. My family was not trying to repair what happened. They were trying to erase it. Every lie, every story, every excuse, every rumor, everything pointed toward the same goal. If they could make me look unstable, emotional, unreasonable, then the truth would become easier to dismiss. That night, Daniel sat beside me at the kitchen table long after Oliver had fallen asleep. Neither of us spoke for several minutes. Then he quietly asked if I still had the voicemail. I nodded. He asked if it was backed up. I nodded again. Then he asked whether I trusted my family not to keep escalating. For the first time, I answered honestly. No, I did not. Not anymore. The next morning, we contacted an attorney. At first, it felt ridiculous. I was not planning to sue anyone. I was not seeking revenge. I simply wanted advice. The attorney listened carefully. She reviewed the messages. She reviewed the screenshots. She reviewed the hospital records. Then she asked to hear the voicemail. The room became silent as the recording played. Birthday music. Laughter. Vanessa's voice. My father's voice. And finally my mother's voice saying that my C-section could wait because Noah only turned 6 once and the video mattered. When the recording ended, the attorney removed her glasses slowly. Then she asked a question neither Daniel nor I expected. Had my family ever tried to control the public version of events before? I laughed bitterly. All my life. The attorney nodded as though she had expected that answer. Then she explained something important. The issue was no longer the birthday party. The issue was the campaign that followed. The lies. The harassment. The medical record request. The false stories. The attempts to damage my credibility. One by one, the events began fitting together like pieces of a picture I never wanted to see. For years, I had believed my family favored Vanessa. Now I was beginning to understand something worse. They needed Vanessa to be right. Always. Even when she was wrong. Even when people got hurt. Even when reality itself disagreed. And if protecting her required sacrificing me, they would do it without hesitation. The attorney advised us to document everything. Every message, every phone call, every social media post, every interaction. She said people often reveal themselves when they believe they are winning. At the time, I did not fully understand what she meant. But over the following months, my family would reveal far more than any of us imagined. And eventually, one of those revelations would bring all of us into a courtroom where a judge, a jury, and a packed gallery would listen to a recording that nobody expected to hear from the person who pressed play. It would not be me. It would be the doctor who delivered my son. For a while, things became strangely quiet, not peaceful. Quiet, there is a difference. Peace comes when a conflict ends. Silence comes when a conflict is gathering strength somewhere you cannot see. That was the season Daniel and I entered after meeting with the attorney. The phone calls slowed down. The family messages became less frequent. My mother stopped posting photos of Oliver. Vanessa stopped making public comments. Even my father disappeared. At first, I thought maybe they had finally understood. Maybe they realized what they had done. Maybe someone had convinced them to stop. Maybe they were ashamed. Looking back now, I laugh at how badly I wanted those explanations to be true. The reality was much uglier. They were not backing away. They were preparing. Life with Oliver continued moving forward while all of this happened in the background. He smiled for the first time at 9 weeks old. He learned how to grab Daniel's finger. He developed a habit of falling asleep only if someone walked slowly around the living room. Those little milestones became lifelines for me. Every time family drama threatened to consume my thoughts, Oliver pulled me back into the present. He reminded me what actually mattered. But even joy has limits when someone keeps trying to poison it. 3 months after Oliver was born, my mother requested a meeting. She wanted lunch. Just the two of us. No lawyers. No Danielle. No Vanessa. No distractions. According to her message, she wanted to heal our relationship. Against my better judgment, I agreed. Part of me still wanted a mother. That desire had survived things that should have killed it years earlier. We met at a small restaurant halfway between our homes. The moment I saw her walking toward the table, I noticed something strange. She was smiling. Not nervous. Not remorseful. Not emotional. Confident. As if she already knew how the conversation would end. The first 15 minutes felt normal. She asked about Oliver. She asked about sleep schedules. She complimented a recent photo. She spoke about the weather. Then suddenly the conversation changed direction. She asked whether I still had the voicemail. My stomach tightened instantly. Not how are you? Not can you forgive me? Not I am sorry? The voicemail. That was what mattered to her. I asked why she wanted to know. She smiled again. Then she said everyone says things they do not mean sometimes. I stared at her. She continued speaking calmly. She said people make mistakes. She said private conversations should stay private. She said families should protect each other. Then she suggested deleting the recording. Not because it hurt me, because it could hurt the family. I remember sitting there in complete disbelief. Months had passed. Months, and somehow she still believed the real problem was evidence, not behavior. Evidence. I asked whether she regretted missing my surgery. For the first time, her smile disappeared. Then she gave an answer I will never forget. She said she regretted how I interpreted her absence. That sentence ended something inside me. Because there it was. The truth. Not hidden. Not disguised. Not softened. She genuinely believed the issue was my reaction. Not her choice. When lunch ended, I paid my half of the bill and left. She called after me in the parking lot. She said I was tearing the family apart. I turned around and asked a simple question. Who tore it apart first? She had no answer. Over the next several weeks, things escalated quickly. The first sign came from social media. Vanessa began posting cryptic messages. Nothing directly mentioning me. Nothing obvious enough to prove. Just vague statements about toxic people. About forgiveness. About victims who refused to move on. Friends and relatives understood exactly who she meant. The comments filled with sympathy. People praised her strength. People encouraged her to stay positive. People spoke as though she had survived some terrible injustice. I saved screenshots. Every single one. Then came the rumors. A cousin informed me that family gatherings had become discussions about my mental health. Apparently, I was unstable. Apparently, pregnancy hormones had affected my judgment. Apparently, I had exaggerated everything. The stories grew more ridiculous each week. At one point, someone claimed I screamed at nurses during labor. I had not even been in labor. I had a scheduled C-section. The lies were becoming careless. That was when our attorney explained something important. People who tell the truth focus on details. People who lie eventually lose track of them. And my family was beginning to lose track. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A nurse. One afternoon, I received a message through social media from someone named Claire. At first, I did not recognize the name. Then I remembered. The warm blanket. The recovery room. The nurse who had comforted me when my family chose the birthday party. That Claire. Her message was cautious. Professional. Careful. She asked if I would be willing to speak with her. When we arranged a phone call, she explained why. A relative of mine had contacted the hospital. Not my mother this time. Vanessa. She had been asking questions. Lots of questions. Questions about staff. Questions about procedures. Questions about what nurses remembered. Questions about whether anyone documented emotional distress. Questions about visitors. Questions about timelines. Claire found it strange. Especially because Vanessa was not authorized to receive information. The more Claire described the conversation, the more uncomfortable I became. It sounded less like concern, and more like research. Someone was trying to reconstruct the day. Not to understand it, to reshape it. Our attorney immediately became interested. Very interested. Because this was no longer normal family drama. It suggested planning, intent, purpose. Then something happened that changed everything. One evening, Daniel received a phone call from a man we did not know. The caller introduced himself as Noah's former videographer. The same professional hired for the birthday party. At first, we thought he had the wrong number. He did not. Somehow he had found us. What he told us left both of us speechless. Months earlier, Vanessa had contacted him. She wanted copies of all the raw footage from Noah's birthday party. Not unusual by itself, but after reviewing the footage, she requested edits. Specific edits. She wanted timestamps removed. She wanted certain conversations deleted. She wanted sections of video permanently erased. The videographer refused. He believed clients should receive originals. Apparently, this led to a heated argument. The reason he contacted us now was because he recently learned why those edits mattered. Someone had told him about my surgery. Someone had told him about the voicemail. And suddenly those requested deletions looked suspicious. Our attorney nearly fell out of her chair when she heard this. She immediately requested a meeting. The videographer agreed. A week later, we sat inside her office reviewing footage. Hours of footage. Birthday decorations. Children running. Cake. Games. Family members laughing. Ordinary scenes. Then we reached a timestamp shortly after my surgery had begun. The exact period my family later claimed they were trying to reach the hospital. The footage showed something very different. There they were. My mother. My father. Vanessa. All smiling. All participating. All completely relaxed. No rushing. No concern. No urgency. No discussion about leaving. Nothing. Just a family enjoying a birthday party while I was being wheeled into surgery. The timestamp remained visible in the corner. The room became silent. Because suddenly we had more than a voicemail. We had a timeline. A verifiable timeline. The attorney quietly copied everything. Every file. Every frame. Every timestamp. And things only became worse for my family from there. A month later, they made their biggest mistake. The mistake that eventually dragged everyone into court. The mistake that transformed a private family betrayal into a public legal disaster. It started with a social media post. One post, one lie. Vanessa claimed publicly that my family had missed my surgery because hospital staff refused visitors due to medical complications. It was completely false. provably false, and she posted it where hundreds of people could see it. For the first time, our attorney stopped talking about family reconciliation. For the first time, she started talking about defamation, about damages, about evidence, about legal exposure. My mother and father immediately supported Vanessa's version. They repeated it, shared it, defended it. Every lie created another piece of evidence. Every post became another exhibit. Every denial became another problem. And then something unexpected happened. The hospital became involved. Not because of me, because of them. Their repeated public claims began referencing hospital procedures that never occurred. Hospital staff noticed, administration noticed, legal departments noticed. The institution did not appreciate having false statements attached to its name. Suddenly, people who had no emotional connection to my family started paying attention. Professional people, objective people, people who cared about facts. One of those people was Dr. Patel. For months, he had remained completely outside the conflict. He delivered babies. He treated patients. He moved forward with his life. But when false claims started involving his medical decisions and hospital procedures, he was forced into the situation. The first time we spoke again was during a formal meeting arranged by attorneys. I had not seen him since Oliver's follow-up appointments. He greeted me warmly and asked how my son was doing. Then his expression became serious, because he had reviewed the claims. All of them. And according to hospital records, they were impossible. The timeline did not match. The visitor logs did not match. The phone records did not match. Nothing matched. Dr. Patel told us something that stunned even our attorney. He personally remembered my case. Not because of the surgery, because of what happened beforehand. He remembered the nurse informing him that I was crying because my family had chosen a birthday party over the delivery. He remembered checking on me. He remembered seeing my distress. He remembered asking whether I felt supported. Most importantly, he remembered something else. Something nobody knew. Something documented in medical notes. Shortly before surgery, a member of the hospital staff had listened to part of the voicemail. At the time, it was only to understand why I was so emotionally distraught. The event had been noted, recorded, time-stamped, preserved. The room became completely silent. Our attorney slowly leaned back in her chair. Then she asked whether those records still existed. Dr. Patel nodded. Yes, they existed. And if necessary, they could be authenticated. For the first time since this nightmare began, I saw genuine concern appear on the faces of my family's attorneys during later proceedings. Because evidence is dangerous, but independent evidence is devastating. The lawsuit that followed was not something I had originally wanted. I wanted peace. I wanted distance. I wanted healing. Instead, I found myself preparing for depositions, witness lists, evidence reviews, and hearings. The deeper everyone dug, the worse things became. Contradictions appeared everywhere. Stories changed repeatedly. Timelines shifted. Excuses evolved. And every version somehow moved farther from the truth. Months passed. The courtroom date finally arrived. The gallery was crowded. Far more crowded than I expected. Relatives, friends, observers, reporters from small local outlets. People curious about the family conflict that had spiraled completely out of control. I sat beside Daniel. Oliver was with his grandparents. Across the room sat my mother, father, and Vanessa. For the first time in my life, they looked uncertain. Not guilty, not sorry, uncertain, as though they had finally realized they could not control every version of the story. Witnesses testified. Evidence was introduced. Screenshots appeared. Messages appeared. Video footage appeared. The birthday timestamps appeared. One by one, the pieces formed a picture. Then came Dr. Patel. The courtroom became noticeably quieter when he entered. Doctors carry a certain credibility. People listen. He explained the medical situation. He explained the surgery. He explained my emotional condition before the procedure. Then the attorney asked whether he had reviewed specific hospital records. He said yes. The attorney asked whether those records were accurate. He said yes. The attorney asked whether they reflected events documented at the time they occurred. Again, yes. Then came the question that changed everything. Would the doctor explain what contributed to the patient's emotional distress immediately before surgery? Dr. Patel looked toward the judge, toward the jury, toward me. Then he answered, a voicemail. And suddenly, every person in that courtroom became perfectly still, because the next thing the doctor did was reach toward the evidence table and prepare to play the recording that my family had spent more than a year trying to erase. I have replayed that moment in my mind more times than I can count. Not because it was dramatic, not because it felt like victory, but because it was the first time in my life that the truth stood in a room larger than my family. For years, every argument had happened behind closed doors. Every hurt feeling became a misunderstanding. Every betrayal became my fault. Every lie survived because only family members were present to hear it. But this was different. This was a courtroom. Facts mattered there. Evidence mattered there. Excuses did not carry the same weight when a judge was listening. The attorney handed the recording to the court clerk. The judge reviewed the authentication documents, hospital records, phone records, timestamps, chain of custody. Everything had been verified. The recording was approved. Then the courtroom speakers came alive. At first, all anyone heard was background noise, children laughing, music playing, voices overlapping, the sound of a birthday party. Then my voice appeared, small, distant, calling for my mother. The room became silent. People leaned forward. Somebody in the gallery stopped taking notes. I could hear my own breathing from that day, the fear in my voice, the confusion, the hope that somebody would answer. Nobody did. Instead, Vanessa's voice floated through the speakers, casual, relaxed, talking about filming another birthday segment. Then my father's voice, then my mother's. The same voices I had trusted for most of my life. The same voices I had spent years defending. The same voices that had spent the last year insisting everything was a misunderstanding. The recording continued. Every second felt heavier than the one before. Then it happened. My father asked whether anyone had heard from me. My mother answered. She said I was probably already in surgery. There was no panic in her voice. No concern, no urgency. She knew exactly where I was. The courtroom remained completely still. Then Vanessa spoke. She said C-sections happened every day. She said I would be fine. The words echoed through the room. Not cruel, not screaming, not dramatic, just indifferent. And somehow that made them worse. Then came the sentence that changed everything. My mother's voice. Clear, undeniable. She said they could visit later because Noah only turned 6 once and the video mattered. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Nobody even seemed to breathe. The recording ended. The silence afterward felt enormous. The judge looked down at the evidence. The jury looked toward my family. My mother stared straight ahead. My father looked at the table. Vanessa looked furious. Not ashamed. Furious. As if the recording had betrayed her. The attorney allowed several seconds to pass before asking Dr. Patel a final question. How did hearing that voicemail affect the patient before surgery? Dr. Patel answered calmly. He said I was visibly distressed. He said medical staff documented emotional trauma. He said additional support measures were provided because of my condition. Then he looked toward the jury, and he said something I will never forget. He said that bringing a child into the world should never feel like abandonment. Several jurors visibly reacted. One woman wiped her eyes. Another looked directly at my mother. The damage was done. Not because of emotion, because of credibility. The lies could not survive the recording. The lunch conversation where my mother claimed I misunderstood her absence. Gone. The social media stories. Gone. The explanations. Gone. The excuses. Gone. Everything collapsed under a few seconds of audio. But the surprises were not over. During cross-examination, Vanessa's attorney tried one final strategy. He argued that people sometimes make insensitive comments during stressful situations. He argued that the voicemail represented only a brief moment. He argued that it did not reflect the entire situation. At first, I worried the argument might work. Then our attorney introduced the birthday footage. The raw footage. The footage Vanessa had tried to alter. The timestamps appeared on large courtroom screens. Minute by minute, hour by hour, the timeline was devastating. While I was being prepared for surgery, they were decorating. While I was entering the operating room, they were filming. While Oliver took his first breath, they were singing. While I was recovering, they were posing for photographs. The footage did not show concern. It did not show urgency. It did not show anyone attempting to leave. It showed a family enjoying a celebration. The timestamps spoke louder than any witness ever could. One juror actually shook his head while watching. Another stared openly at my father. By that point, even the defense attorneys looked exhausted. The truth had become too large to contain. Over the following days, more witnesses testified. My aunt, the videographer, hospital staff, even relatives who originally believed my family's version. One by one, the stories unraveled. The jury learned about the social media posts, the false claims, the attempts to obtain medical records, the rumors regarding my mental health, the repeated efforts to reshape public perception. Every revelation added another crack. Eventually, the image my family had built over decades collapsed entirely. The most shocking testimony came from someone nobody expected: Noah's former videographer. When questioned about the footage edits Vanessa requested, he produced emails. Actual emails, printed copies, time-stamped, verified. The courtroom reviewed them line by line. The requests were unmistakable. Remove timestamps, delete conversations, trim sections showing arrival times, adjust sequences. The intent became obvious: not memory preservation, narrative control. When the final email appeared on screen, even Vanessa's attorney looked defeated. The jury certainly did. The evidence painted a picture no explanation could repair. A picture of people more concerned with appearances than accountability. A picture I recognized immediately because I had lived inside it my entire life. Then came closing arguments. By then I felt emotionally numb. Not strong. Not triumphant. Just tired. Very tired. For more than a year, I had carried this story. I had defended myself, questioned myself, relived the worst day of my life repeatedly. Now strangers were discussing it inside a courtroom. Part of me wanted it all to end. Another part wanted every detail exposed. The jury deliberated for 2 days. Those 2 days felt longer than the entire trial. I barely slept. Daniel barely slept. My mother attempted to approach me once in the courthouse hallway. I walked away before she reached me. For the first time, I did not feel guilty. I simply felt finished. When the verdict finally arrived, the courtroom filled quickly. Everyone sensed what was coming. The jury entered. The judge reviewed paperwork. Then the decision was read. The findings favored me overwhelmingly. The claims regarding defamation, the false statements, the coordinated attempts to damage my credibility, the misuse of information. The evidence had proven everything, one point after another. The verdict was not just legal validation. It was factual validation, public validation, documented validation. For the first time, the official record reflected the truth. I looked toward Daniel. He squeezed my hand so tightly I thought he might cry. Then I looked at my family. My mother was crying. My father looked hollow. Vanessa looked stunned. Not because they finally understood, because they finally lost control. After the courtroom emptied, reporters approached. I declined every interview. I had no interest in becoming a public story. I wanted my life back. My attorney handled statements. The legal process continued. Settlements followed. Corrections were issued. False claims were withdrawn. Consequences arrived slowly but thoroughly. But something unexpected happened too. Relatives started contacting me. Not to ask for forgiveness, to apologize. People admitted they had believed the lies. People admitted they should have questioned the stories sooner. People admitted they were sorry. Some relationships healed, others did not. I learned that not every bridge deserves rebuilding. Months later, my mother sent a letter. Not a text. Not an email. A handwritten letter. For several days, I left it unopened. Eventually, I read it. The content surprised me. Not because it was perfect. It was not. But for the first time, there was no blame. No excuses. No explanations. Only regret. She admitted she chose the birthday party. She admitted she convinced herself the surgery could wait. She admitted she cared too much about appearances. Most importantly, she admitted she spent more energy protecting herself than protecting her daughter. I cried after reading it. Not because it fixed anything, because it arrived too late. Some wounds heal. Others become scars. Scars do not disappear. They simply stop bleeding. I never fully reconciled with Vanessa. There was too much damage. Too many choices. Too many years. My relationship with my father remained distant. Polite but distant. The only person who truly changed my future was Oliver, because every major decision afterward became simple. Whenever I wondered what to do, I asked one question. What would I want my son to learn from this? The answer guided everything. Boundaries. Honesty, self-respect, accountability, love, real love. Not the version I grew up chasing. The real version, the kind that shows up, the kind that stays, the kind that does not require proof. A few years later, I found myself standing in Oliver's preschool auditorium during his first school performance. The room was crowded. Parents filled every chair. Children waited nervously behind a curtain. Oliver kept searching the audience until he found me and Daniel. The moment he spotted us, he smiled. Not because we were special, because he knew we would be there, no matter what. As I waved back, I suddenly thought about the operating room, the voicemail, the courtroom, the years of pain, and I realized something important. My family skipped my C-section to film my nephew's birthday party. The doctor played the voicemail in court. Those facts changed my life, but they did not define it. The thing that defined my life happened afterward. I stopped begging people to love me correctly. I stopped shrinking myself to make others comfortable. I stopped confusing family with loyalty, and in the space left behind, I built something stronger. A home where my son never has to wonder if he matters. A family where showing up is not optional. A life where truth no longer depends on who tells the story. Because in the end, the voicemail did more than expose a lie. It exposed the people willing to live inside it. And once the truth was finally heard, I never had to ask for a place in the family again. I created my own. Looking back, I learned that real family is not defined by blood, promises, or appearances, but by the people who stand beside you when you need them most. The pain of that day will always be part of my story, but it no longer controls my future. Instead, it taught me the value of truth, self-respect, and unconditional love. Today, I focus on giving my son the support and security I once wished for myself. If this story touched you, please leave a comment below and let me know you made it all the way to the end. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss future stories like this one. Thank you for being here and sharing this journey with me.